If you want to understand the real process behind getting hired as a musician on cruise ships, this is it. The actual step-by-step reality. I'm going to break down exactly how the cruise ship hiring process works, from first contact with an agency to signing your contract, including the parts nobody talks about. I went through this process myself in 2021, from seeing a Facebook ad to boarding a ship in just 2 months. And I'm going to show you the real process, the timeline you can expect, what agencies are actually looking for in auditions, and the hidden steps that stress everyone out. This is how to get hired on a cruise ship, the real unfiltered process. So we're going to start with how most musicians find out about cruise ship opportunities. So most musicians discover cruise ship opportunities and specific contracts on social media. It can be through a Facebook ad or Instagram posts, or sometimes just Googling cruise ship musicians jobs. And so the reality is that you don't need agency contacts or connections to get started. You can just apply online straight away. However, what you do need before applying is the right material with a basic repertoire, the ability to entertain, and some footage that can show that this is true. And so as an example, I can tell you how I found out about cruise ships opportunities and how I got my first contract. I was teaching piano in London at the time and I was hating every second of it. I had around 40 to 60 songs in my repertoire. I had a classical training background on the piano, and spoiler, it didn't help me in any way to get hired. I didn't have any cruise ship experience or contacts or knowledge about how this industry works, and I saw a Facebook ad from Sonic Artists Agency. And that's it. The lesson from this is that you don't need to be special, or you don't need to have a certain title or certain connections to get started in this industry. Now let me tell you about the first contact, how the process actually begins when you start getting in touch with an agent, and how it usually works in this industry is you reach out to the agent, especially if you've never done this before and that you're not known to agents. And depending on the job that you're applying for, they will ask for your material. So especially for solos, duos, and bands, they will ask for your show reel, for your song repertoire, maybe a resume, and most importantly, your availability. Sometimes you will get in touch with an agent about a specific opportunity, a specific contract that you might have seen on a Facebook post. And sometimes you're just getting in touch with them so that you can be part of their roster. Now about the timeline in terms of responses, it can really vary. Sometimes you're getting an answer straight away, and sometimes it can take weeks or months before you hear back from an agent. It really depends on what's available out there and how much they actually need you. Now let me tell you about how it worked for me when I first got started with my first contract. On the 12th of August 2021, I reached out to Sonic Artists after seeing a post on their Facebook ad. I reached out via Messenger saying that I was interested. Very quickly, he responded by telling me to send him an email. I shared my resume and I said that I saw the Facebook ad and I was reaching out for this, and there was a piano vocalist interested in this job. I sent a performance video of me the same day, and surprisingly, which doesn't happen often in this industry, I got on a phone call the same day. That was unusually fast, and so really don't expect these kind of timelines, because unless there's a job that's waiting to be taken from a musician and that the agent really needs you to fill out this position, it won't happen this fast. So the lesson you can take from this is just reach out. You have nothing to lose. The worst that can happen is that they take some time to reply. Now, what happens on your first audition, and what do agencies actually test when you get in touch with them and during an audition? So the reality about cruise ship auditions is that there are multiple positions, and the audition process will really depend on what position you're interested in. Here are some of the positions that there are. You can be a keys player, you can be a guitarist, you can be a piano vocalist, you can be a band member. And especially for the members of the orchestra or the show band, you need to be very good at sight reading, because you'll have to play with click tracks, and once you're on the ship, they will give you sheet music that you'll have to read very quickly, and the show will most likely be on the same day. For a piano bar vocalist, the requirements will be completely different. You'll need to be entertaining guests, to have a big repertoire, and your personality matters way more than other jobs. Now, auditions can be in person, on Zoom, or pre-recorded videos. And the beauty of auditions is that you can fail at one specific position and still be redirected onto another position. When I started, I had no idea about cruise ships positions for musicians. I had no idea how it all worked. I just knew that I was playing the piano and I was singing, and I just wanted to do this and to jump on a cruise ship, but I didn't know at all how it worked. And so only 4 days after my first contact with Sonic Artists, so on the 16th of August 2021, I had my first audition, and what I was applying for was a keys player position. So what happened is they sent me scores and click tracks to play along to, and the truth is that I completely failed. I couldn't be fast enough, and I knew it in that moment that it was just not for me, and I felt really bad because I just couldn't play. I thought I had a good sight reading level because I started the piano when I was very young, but the speed at which they're expecting you to read what's in front of you is insane, and I just completely failed at it. But thankfully I had an agent in front of me who was really understanding and who was really kind, and he said, okay, maybe this is not going to work out for you, but maybe we have another position that would work better for you, and that's the piano vocalist position. And so he explained me quickly what it was about, that you needed to have a huge repertoire that you would be playing on your own every day. And that was my dream. I was like, I really want to do this. And so I was really grateful that this agent took the time to redirect me to another position, and maybe I could work with cruise ships through that agency, but with a different position. So just remember that this is normal. If you fail at one audition for a specific position, it might mean that you're not the perfect fit for that specific position, but there are maybe other positions that could work for you. So there are options. And so I would be really honest and upfront about my skill level if I had to start again, because agencies have multiple positions available. Okay, let's pause for a second. If you're watching this thinking, wait, are there even different positions? What do agencies want? Where would I fit? You're not alone. Most musicians have no idea about all this when they first start out in the cruise industry. This is why I created the Honest Guide to Cruise Ships for Musicians, which is not about technical requirements, it's about the reality. The reality of what it's actually like to live and work on a ship, the pros and cons nobody mentions, and a self-check to figure out if it's even for you before you waste your time applying. The guide is completely free, it's down in the description. Download it, read it in 10 minutes, and then come back because I'm about to show you what actually happens after you get redirected to a different position. Now let me share with you what the piano bar vocalist position actually means and why it can be harder than other musicians' positions on ships. So what does it actually mean to be a piano bar vocalist on cruise ships? Most of the time you'll be allocated to the same bar where you'll be playing and singing for guests between 2 to 4 times 45 minutes every single day. You'll usually have 1 day off during the week, and you'll be entertaining guests in one of the ship's bars. And so the requirements for this are to have a big repertoire with at least 150 songs, to have the ability to play and sing to a good level, and to have a great personality where you can entertain and read the room as well as take in requests. It's clearly not about having a perfect technique, because I definitely don't have perfect technique and my music level wasn't the best when I started. But it's really about personality and variety in the way you sing and play. And so a lot of musicians who work on land do need to spend some time expanding their repertoire before they even think about applying on cruise ships. In my case, after this failed audition that I had on the 16th of August, the agent said to me that I needed at least 150 songs to 200 songs to even think about applying for these kind of positions. And I think at this time I had around 50 songs, which were quite slow, and a lot of them were just ballads. And so this is when I realized, okay, it's really going to take me a minute to learn over 100 songs. But thankfully I knew that I could use my iPad, and so I got to work and I spent 3 weeks working at least 6 hours a day and learning these 150 songs. And so if you're considering being a piano vocalist or even a guitar vocalist, the repertoire requirement is a non-negotiable. Now this is what the preparation process looks like for musicians. If you want to take this seriously, you need to expand your repertoire from 50 songs or wherever you're at to at least 150 songs in a minimal amount of time if you're thinking of applying soon enough. The type of songs that are needed, think international songs, pop hits, classic rock, current requests. You also need to prepare a show reel with edited performance footage, ideally between 3 to 8 minutes. You need to prepare your song list organized by genres and eras. Make sure it's showing versatility. And there are mandatory certifications that you need to get before working at sea, like the STCW training and the ENG1 medical, but these are the kind of things that you're gonna get once you get in touch with an agent and once you have a potential position available to you. So don't worry about these documents if you don't have a potential job yet. So the timeline reality is that there are at least 3 or 4 weeks of preparation once you know what you have to do until the point that you're actually ready to get on board. And for me, all of this happened in 3 or 4 weeks, so that was really quick, between mid-August to early September. I was working full-time as a piano teacher and I had to learn over 100 songs. And so every spare moment that I had, I was learning, practicing again, trying to memorize. I also had to shift from slow ballads, which I really enjoyed playing, to more upbeat songs. I had to create a show reel from my existing footage that I had so that it could fit the agency requirements. I had to travel from London, that's where I was living at the time, to Liverpool to do my SCW training and my ENG1 medical. And I think this was the most stressful part of the process before getting on board, because I just had to do everything on time. And I also had no idea what it was like to be on a cruise ship, so I had this pre-embarkation stress. So if you're thinking that you might be on a cruise ship next week and that you don't have all of this, just plan for this amount of time before you even get on board, because there's definitely some preparation time involved in the process. Now let's talk about submitting materials and what actually gets you a job, what gets you an offer. So in the cruise industry, this is how the decision process works. The agency will review your profile and your material, your show reel, your repertoire, your experience, your profile. What they do is they take all of this information, and if they think that you've got a chance, they will send everything to the cruise line. And so for solo, duo, trios and bands, the audition process is mostly just this: your material being sent to the cruise line. That's all they get to see, and they make a decision based on this. The timeline can go from 3 days to months, depending on what position is available and how many profiles similar to yours they have in their roster. But what I would recommend, if you don't hear back within 2 weeks, follow up. There's nothing to lose. Once you have followed up once, you can wait a month or 2 before following up another time. And I would keep applying every 2 months to agencies if that's a serious career goal for you to work on cruise ships. Now, this is what my timeline looked like back in 2021. 3 weeks after my first failed audition, which was on the 16th of August, I was ready to send my new show reel and my song list to the agent. So that was on the 7th of September. From this point, I was so stressed because I had worked so hard and I was just really hoping I would get a job. Remember, I was teaching piano in London, hating it. I was dreaming of making a living out of performing. I constantly checked my emails. I was so obsessed. It was really hard to just do something else. Luckily, 3 days later, I got an offer, which was £500 per week. And so after the 15% agency fee, it was a £425 per week take-home pay. And I asked the agent, I said, is this reasonable for a first contract? And he said, yes, it is. What you need to remember is this offer came to me from them reviewing my materials, not seeing me perform live. And so the energy that you need to put is not so much in trying to get better musically, but of course you can do that on the side, but really trying to get your materials to be better. How can you expand your song list? How can you get a video that's shot in the best way possible? Quality doesn't matter as much, but the interaction with the audience really matters. So I would really focus on this, because this is the only thing that will make it or break it for you. Now, the truth about my situation is that as I got this offer purely based on my materials, if I knew what I know today, I would probably have done things differently. I would have prepared smartly from day one. I would have avoided wasting 3 weeks, and I would have negotiated the contract, because £425 per week for a first contract is a good offer, but it's still on the lower end for a first contract. And so if you're at this stage right now, you're preparing your material, you're thinking of applying, you're building your song list, and maybe you're already in touch with an agency, and you're thinking, am I actually good enough? Is this offer fair? I offer a 15 minutes quick assessment for €47. I'll review your show reel, your song list, any offers that you might have gotten yet, and I'll give you direct and honest feedback: what's strong, what needs work, what's missing, and whether that offer is actually competitive. We'll also create an action plan so that you know exactly what to focus on and how to get the best contract possible as soon as possible. We'll focus on your material, and if you're interested in getting that review, the link is in the description. Now, let me show you what happens after you get the offer. Before you get the agency to say yes or no, sometimes they will want to verify your material, and that's what happened in my case. I haven't heard many musicians who experienced this, but get ready for it because it might happen. Sometimes, especially if you haven't performed on cruise ships, if that's new to you and if you don't have that much experience, the agent will want to see you playing live. They will want to make sure that you can actually do what you say you can do in your showreel or on your resume. And so this is not the main audition, it's just a verification call, which can be really stressful. And so of course, if you misrepresented your abilities and that is very obvious in the verification call, you might lose the offer. It's usually on Zoom, it lasts 10 or 15 minutes and they will just ask you to play something live. And so my verification call happened after I got my first offer, and so I was extremely nervous for it. It was on the 13th of September and I had a video call with the agency. And so I had the excitement of being hired. I knew that the offer was mine if I wanted it, but there was still this step where they needed to verify that I can play. And they were also asking me to play upbeat stuff because most of my showreel was emotional ballads and slow stuff. And so that was a test to see if I can play something else that was in my showreel. I remember my hands were shaking and I decided to play Gimme 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 by ABBA on the piano. And he pretty much said, yeah, you're good enough for this, don't worry, you're fine. And so I got the offer, thankfully, and the lesson would be to be honest about your material and your skills, not to lie. Anyway, it's really hard to lie in a video. Like if you manage to play really good in the video and you can't play live, it makes no sense. So sometimes they can't verify. They won't verify if you know all 150 songs, but there can be some verification calls like this just to make sure that they know who they are about to hire. Now, here are the final steps that there are between getting your first contract and actually embarking on the ship. So here are the timelines for signing your contract, for example. Sometimes it will take 1 or 2 weeks before they even send you the contract to sign, but most of the time when the agency tells you that the contract is for you, it is. There is a girl I coached who had a really bad experience for her first contract. The agent said to her that she would get the contract and finally he gave it to someone else. That's really not nice, but it usually doesn't happen. That's a mistake. I was actually on the ship where that girl was supposed to replace me, and she was texting me saying that she was coming, but the musical director told me that someone else was coming. That's why I realized. The departure, it really depends. Sometimes they're looking for a last-minute musician, and if that's the case, you might be leaving in 3 days, but a lot of the time it's gonna be in 3 weeks to 3 months from now. And so during this time, you actually get ready, you say goodbye to your job, you try to manage what you're going to do with your flat, if you're going to keep it. You do any certifications you need to do, like the STCW, you might get any vaccinations that you need, get the medical. The agent will book your flights tickets to the port where you're going to be joining the ship. Of course, they take care of everything. They sometimes give you some money as well for the travel. And most contracts are between 4 to 6 months. So you're self-employed on a contract basis. And so for me, the contract arrived on the 16th of September, so a couple of days after the verification call. I signed the contract on the 17th, so just a day after, I returned it to them. And around 1 month later, I think it was on the 19th of October, I embarked on Marella Discovery 1. So what I had to prepare was to extend my playlist and to prepare musically for the sets I was about to do in the evening. And I also had a dueling show to prepare, which was a theater show that I was doing with another pianist. And so it was all charted with click tracks. I was extremely nervous for this, by the way. And so the total process was from the 12th of August to the 19th of October, so just over 2 months. And I would say that my timeline was pretty quick compared to some musicians that I have coached. For example, there's a girl who had everything right. We had created everything. It was probably 2 or 3 months before she got more comfortable with playing. She put her set list together, she got the showreel, and then she had to wait 3 to 6 months before getting her first contract, even though everything looked good because she had been working with me and we knew it. But sometimes it can take a little bit longer. So I would say 2 or 3 months for the whole preparation thing, whether it's musically and then the hiring process can take 2 or 3 months. But sometimes it will take between 6 to 9 months. And of course, that depends on how much you need to work on your instrument, on getting a good show reel, on expanding your song list, and on being proactive by getting in touch with agencies and these kind of things. Let me just tell you about the emotional part, that like what happened to me after I got signed. I felt really, really lonely from the moment I knew I was going to get on a ship, because at the time there was nobody doing what I'm doing here, like sharing all the things about working on a cruise ship. And so I didn't even know like if I should bring a towel or what is life on board, is there gonna be internet. I remember I created a file on my phone where there was a screenshot of every single port I'm going to, with the currencies, with the weather and all these kind of things, and I planned every single thing I needed, like shampoo, or I didn't know what to bring, and I was so nervous, and I really felt like I was left alone. And this is why I care so much now about helping musicians through this process, because it's such a life change when you go from being at home, you have your routine, you have your habits, and you go on a ship where you don't know anybody, and it's a whole new planet that works completely differently. This is for another video, but ship life can be very funny at times and very different from life on land. And the pre-contract as well as the contract as well as the post-contract can be very isolating. And especially before you join the ship, it can be very stressful because you have a lot to handle, and emotionally is quite intense as well. And I would say that the period that there was between I got hired and between the moment I joined the ship was probably even more stressful than the beginning, where I was in touch with agents, because my whole life was going to change, and I didn't know this at the time, but it was really hard emotionally. I'm a very intense person as well. What I would do if I was you is really to find someone who has done it, to ask questions, to not be alone in the process. And again, you know that I am here. You can even leave a comment below if you're in this position, and if you have any questions. Let me tell you the key lessons and the things that I wish someone told me before I started and when my goal was to work on cruise ships. Some of the industry insights that most musicians learn the hard way are: first, about agencies, they respond really slowly. 3 to 7 days is good in this world, and sometimes it can take weeks. The second harsh truth about agencies is that after you have signed your low priority, so any message you're going to send them is not going to be a priority for them, because you are sorted, you are filled in a position, and they have other musicians to find for other contracts. One thing I wish I knew at the start is that there are so many cruise lines, so many agencies, so many positions, and if I get rejected or if I don't hear back, it doesn't mean anything about me as a musician and about my potential career on cruise ships. That I really think that there's a position that works for you in the cruise ship world, and if that's your goal, you should go for it, because there are so many agencies, so many cruise lines out there. Now, in terms of the offer, especially as a solo entertainer, piano vocalist or guitar vocalist, the minimum really is 400 to 600 euros or pounds per week, or dollars. I mean, doesn't matter. You can negotiate, but if you don't have an experience and if you don't know the industry standards, it can be difficult to negotiate. I would not accept an offer before researching, before knowing a little bit about this world, and also whatever is in the contract, you know, and whether that agency or cruise line that you're getting committed with is serious or not. Now, what I wish I knew about the process is that your actual audition for you solo, duo, trios and bands, your auditions is going to be your material. 3 to 4 weeks of preparation to get to 150 songs and to build your show reel is going to be the minimum that you need in order to get to the level that the agency expects from you. The industry is huge. There are lots of positions, lots of agencies, and lots of cruise lines. I really wish I knew earlier what makes a good show reel, what makes a good profile, a good song list. I really wish I knew that 3 or 4 weeks of silence is completely normal in this world. I wish I did not put cruise ships on a pedestal, and I wish I knew my value as a musician a little bit more. Cruise ships are really the environment that made me realize that I could do this professionally. And this is why at the time I was like, I need this, and I was really putting it in a pedestal. But looking back, I'm just thinking, hey, that was just an opportunity like others. I could have done hotels, I could have done resorts, residencies, gigs on land. It's not that hard to go from amateur to professional musician if you're really committed and if you just know this world a little bit. And I really wish I had more self-confidence and that I believed I was good enough, because I was, and at the time I was not seeing it. So I really wish I knew that at the time. And so some advice for you if you are thinking of starting this process is be patient during silence. Agencies are slow and that's normal. Don't obsess over one agency. There are so many of them, so apply to multiple agencies. Invest your time in getting your material right, the song list, the showreel, your profile, and your strategy to contact agencies. Do not stay alone. Find someone who has done it and who can help you through the process, both practically and emotionally, and budget at least 2 or 3 months as preparation time and hiring process before you're actually going to put a foot on the cruise ship. So that's the real process behind getting hired on cruise ships, from the first agency contact to boarding, the actual timeline, the requirements, and the hidden steps that stress everyone out. And the process works. From the 12th of August to the 19th of August, I was just over 2 months between seeing a Facebook ad in my flat in London and performing in the Caribbean. But then knowing the process is one thing, and having a personalized strategy for your specific situation is another. If you want a complete action plan customized to you, not just general advice, but the full strategy for your specific level, I offer strategy sessions. That's 45 minutes where we build your entire application strategy. What agencies to contact first based on your background, how to position yourself in emails, what your showreel and song list needs specifically from the material you've already got now, how to prepare for auditions, how to negotiate contracts, and what questions to ask to avoid the isolation that I experienced. It's customized to your goals, your skills, and your timeline. The link is in the description if you're interested. But whether you work with me or not, just remember, the process is clear, the industry is big, and one rejection doesn't mean anything about you as a person and as a musician. You just saw exactly how it works in the industry and from my own story, and so now you know what to expect. Now tell me what parts of this process concerns you the most. Is it the audition, the preparation, the waiting? Drop a comment below. I read every single one of them and I will reply to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.